Comedic legend Dick Van Dyke will be turning 100 a few days from now, and ahead of the milestone birthday, the city of Malibu threw him a huge party.
For almost 100 years, Dick Van Dyke has made people smile. His dancing, his warm humor, and his bright energy shaped generations. He became the kind of star who feels timeless, someone the world believes it fully understands. But behind that famous smile, there has always been something else, a quiet detail, a small lingering question that never quite faded. As Dick Van Dyke reaches his 100th birthday, that question returns stronger than ever, because recently he shared a simple remark, one that surprised fans, historians, and even Disney experts. A comment that made many wonder if he had been holding on to something deeper all along. It hinted at a truth only he may still remember. A truth tied to the final years of Hollywood's golden age. And now the world is left wondering, what is the last mystery Dick Van Dyke has carried for a lifetime? To understand why this mystery matters, we need to look back at where Dick Van Dyke came from. Long before the fame, long before the movies and the applause, he was just a young man from the Midwest who loved to entertain. He grew up with strong values, kindness, hard work, and a quiet confidence that would later define his career. When he entered show business, television was still finding its identity, but Van Dyke quickly became one of the faces that shaped it. The Dick Van Dyke Show turned him into a household name, admired for his gentle charm and natural comedic timing. Viewers felt connected to him because he seemed honest and familiar, almost like a member of the family. But his rise to fame wasn't perfect. Behind the scenes, he struggled with personal issues he kept hidden for many years. Alcoholism affected his home life. A long, secret affair led to the end of his 36-year marriage. These moments revealed a more complicated side of the man who always looked cheerful on screen. Even so, one relationship stood out above the rest: his connection with Walt Disney. Working together on Mary Poppins created a bond that went far beyond a normal actor-producer partnership. Van Dyke often described Disney with deep respect and warmth, sharing stories that made their friendship feel unique. Today, very few people from that era are still alive. That makes Van Dyke's memories incredibly valuable. He is not just a beloved actor, he is one of the last living witnesses to a world that no longer exists. And this is where the mystery begins. The mystery began with one quiet comment. It wasn't dramatic or emotional. It sounded simple, almost like a passing thought, but its meaning opened a door to questions no one expected. As Dick Van Dyke neared his 100th birthday, he said he believed he might be the last person alive who truly knew Walt Disney on a personal level. The statement traveled fast. Fans repeated it. Reporters analyzed it. Yet Van Dyke never backed away from it. He kept speaking about Disney with the calm confidence of someone who remembered things the rest of the world had forgotten. But this was not the only part of his life under new attention. Around the same time, people were still discussing another major controversy: his marriage to Arlene Silver, who is 46 years younger than him. When they married in 2012, many criticized the age gap, calling it strange, inappropriate, or proof that Van Dyke was trying to hold on to youth. Supporters defended him, saying love does not follow rules. Van Dyke himself insisted the marriage brought him peace and joy, especially after years of personal struggles. Together, these two storylines, the bold claim about Walt Disney and the public debate over his much younger wife, created a turning point. For the first time in years, people looked at Van Dyke not only as a beloved entertainer, but as someone surrounded by unanswered questions. Why speak now about Disney? Why marry so late in life? And what do these choices reveal about the man behind the smile? The breaking point wasn't one event. It was the moment the world realized his life carried more mystery than anyone had seen before. The reaction to Van Dyke's comments, and to his late life choices, didn't fade quietly. Instead, it pushed old conversations back into the spotlight, creating a second wave of attention that he had not faced in years. As people debated whether he was truly the last person who knew Walt Disney, the media began revisiting the more complicated parts of his past. They remembered the struggles he once kept hidden, his long battle with alcoholism, which grew so severe that he often felt trapped between his public image and his private reality. He secretly checked himself into rehab after realizing he could no longer control his drinking, and later admitted that the addiction deeply strained his marriage and left him ashamed of how far things had gone. Attention also turned back to his highly public affair with Michelle Triola, a relationship that began quietly, but eventually became headline news once the truth came out. Fans were shocked that it had lasted for years while he was still married, and the revelation painted a picture of a much more complex personal life than the cheerful characters he played on screen. The affair didn't just hurt his marriage, it followed him for decades as one of the most talked about scandals of his career. Suddenly, every new statement he made, even ones about Disney, was judged through this long history of mistakes, recovery, and regret. And as the debate grew, so did one question: was Van Dyke finally revealing long-held truths, or reopening wounds the world never fully understood? Van Dyke is one of the last major stars from Hollywood's golden age. Most of the actors, directors, and creators he once worked with are no longer alive. This means he now carries memories that cannot be checked, compared, or confirmed by anyone else. He has become a living time capsule, a person who remembers things the world has already forgotten. So when he says he may be the last person who truly knew Walt Disney, he is also speaking about something much bigger: how history slowly changes as its witnesses disappear. When only one voice remains, that voice holds enormous power. Every memory becomes more valuable. Every detail becomes part of the public record simply because no one else can say otherwise. This idea also reflects Van Dyke's own life story. Over the years, he revealed painful truths: his hidden alcoholism, his secret trip to rehab, the affair that ended his marriage, and the guilt he carried for decades. These confessions reshaped his image, turning him from a perfect family entertainer into a real human being with flaws and lessons. His experiences, mistakes, and survival make his perspective unique. He lived through highs and lows few actors ever face. He survived scandals, heartbreak, and even a terrifying car fire that nearly cost him his life. Now, at 100 years old, his memories are not just stories, they are pieces of history. And perhaps the real mystery is not what he knows about Disney, but how one man becomes the final guardian of an entire era. As Dick Van Dyke enters his 100th year, the world sees him differently than before. He is no longer just a legendary performer. He is one of the last people who can still speak from inside a Hollywood that has completely faded away. Because of this, every new interview he gives feels important, almost like a final record of moments no one else can describe. Some people believe he may continue sharing more pieces of his past. He might reveal new memories about Walt Disney, or offer deeper reflections on the struggles he once kept hidden. His drinking, the choices that hurt the people he loved, and the difficult steps he took to rebuild himself. He already said that quitting alcohol and cigarettes likely saved his life, and many wonder if he will speak more about how close he came to a different ending. Others think he may stay quiet. At his age, he may choose to hold on to certain memories, either out of loyalty, respect, or simply because some moments feel too personal to share with the world. Meanwhile, Hollywood is preparing for what comes next. Documentaries, tributes, and retrospectives now treat him as a rare treasure, a final witness to a time that shaped modern entertainment. His words, whether detailed or brief, will continue to guide how people remember that era. As for the mystery surrounding him, it may never be fully solved, because sometimes the last chapter of a person's life is not about revealing everything, but about deciding what is worth leaving behind. In the quiet of his 100th year, Dick Van Dyke stands as one of the last bright lights from a world that no longer exists. Hollywood has changed, generations have passed, and almost everyone who walked beside him during the early days is gone. Yet he remains, still smiling, still hopeful, still carrying memories no one else alive can describe. His life has been full of joy, talent, and success, but also mistakes, guilt, and painful lessons. Over time, he learned to speak honestly about those struggles. The drinking that nearly destroyed him, the affair that broke his marriage, and the choices he later wished he could undo. By sharing these truths, he showed that even the most beloved icons are human. Their stories are not perfect, they are real, and that may be the heart of the mystery surrounding him. Not a hidden secret, but the simple truth of what it means to live a very long life. When a person reaches 100, their memories become more than personal experiences. They become pieces of history, shaped by time, emotion, and the desire to understand what truly mattered. Maybe the final mystery of Dick Van Dyke's life is not about Walt Disney or any single moment from the past. Maybe the mystery is how one man carried so much light through so many years, even when the world only saw the smile and not the struggle. In the end, his greatest legacy may be this: a reminder that a full life, bright, flawed, long, and honest, is the most powerful story of all.